today, we focus on the impact track, the newest competition track to the Bend Venture Conference, now in its 5th year. This competition includes for-profit companies whose business models are integrated with the mission to have a significant and measurable social or environmental impact. These companies are aiming to generate long-term enterprise value and attractive returns on capital. Today, they are competing for investment. This year, we had 30 companies apply to the impact category. After several meetings and hours and hours and hours of due diligence by myself and all of the investors in the impact track, among other participants and volunteers, poring over due diligence, the BVC Impact LLC investors have narrowed the field to the 4 companies that you're about to see on stage. So please help me welcome to the stage our first finalist, Biomotum from Portland, Oregon, creators of a robotic ankle assist device that offers a cost-effective, lightweight, portable, and efficient way to improve mobility in those with movement disorders. Presenting for Biomotum, please welcome co-founder and CEO, Ray Browning.
I think I might have just taken my microphone off of my... I'm going to leave this hanging back here. That's a tough act to follow, both Maggie's introduction and also FarmLink. That's fantastic. I'm really inspired by what that was all about, and certainly relevant to the impact track. As Maggie said, my name is Ray Browning. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Biomotum. We are a robotics rehabilitation company that aims to transform the trajectory of mobility in individuals with movement disorders. By empowering mobility, we empower mobility by energizing every step. This video describes the original motivation for Biomotum, which is to help kids with CP, or cerebral palsy, walk.
Until you have a sprained ankle or torn ACL, most of us go about our lives without even thinking about walking. Cerebral palsy is caused by an injury to the brain or central nervous system around the time of birth. Cerebral palsy often results in abnormal walking pattern. The goal of this research project is to definitively demonstrate that simple, lightweight, wearable robots can improve walking efficiency in children with cerebral palsy.
As you'll see in a moment, Zach's research has been remarkably effective, but the fact remains that there are 1 billion individuals worldwide that have a physical disability that limits their ability to walk. For those individuals, physical therapy is the most common treatment to help improve their mobility. But the amount of physical therapy is often hard to achieve, and the delivery of physical therapy can be inefficient. It's hard to get a sufficient number of steps even during a visit to improve mobility. Thus, there's really not a good viable way right now to have a sufficient dose of therapy to lead to long-term improvements in mobility. Until now. We have developed a lightweight, wearable robotic system that can be used to deliver therapy anytime, anywhere. Our solution should lead to an increased dose of therapy, which will improve mobility, greater independence for the individual, and also it's a connected device, so it allows both clinicians and patients to optimize care. Specifically, this is a schematic of our device. It's a robotic ankle assist device. I have one in the back of my car if you'd like to see it in person later. It includes a waist pack that goes around, obviously, your waist, and then an ankle-foot assembly that actuates. It's got motors and batteries. It's very lightweight. And the control is done through your phone, and it has 2 modes. It can be used to assist, so to help people get around, but it can also be used in a mode we call resist to restore, which resists the motion and can be used to greatly improve strength and coordination in individuals with movement disorders. In fact, this is a video of a child using the device. He has cerebral palsy. He's using the device in resist to restore mode. And I think it's critical to point out that this kind of targeted functional muscle training and coordination is not possible in physical therapy today. Does the device work? This is a video, same child, he didn't grow, we just had the camera zoomed in a little bit more, that participated in a 4-week intervention, 12 sessions using the device in resist to restore mode. And as you can see, it resulted in unprecedented improvements in his mobility over the course of that 4-week intervention. In fact, the device has been shown to improve mobility 3 to 6 times faster than conventional standard of care. By improve, I mean people walk faster, as you saw, walk with less effort, less energy required, and their mechanics of walking are improved, which means they have a lower risk of long-term musculoskeletal damage and disorders associated with that. The number one thing that we hear from individuals who use the device or their parents is this is life-changing. We have 2 primary markets, rehabilitation clinics and individuals with movement disorders. There are approximately 40,000 physical therapy clinics in the United States that treat mobility. And there are 7.5 million individuals who use assistive technology or assistive devices to walk. Through our market research and customer discovery process, we estimate that the initial market for the device pre-reimbursement is approximately 75,000 individuals. We've talked to a number of these customers. In fact, 2 in the clinical research side, the Gillette Children's Specialty Care and Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, are partners with us on a large National Institute of Health grant. And they are the number 1 and number 2 centers in the world for treating cerebral palsy in the pediatric population. We've also discussed this with a number of clinical centers like the Shriners Hospital in Portland, and over 50 individuals with movement disorders or children that have movement disorders. All have asked for the device. We have several competitive advantages. One of the main ones is we're really capitalizing on this rapid transformation of electrification of human transport. So we've got electric bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards, and that's made power less expensive and easier to deliver to a device like this. We think we can offer this device at a price that's actually similar to standard of care options right now in the physical therapy community. We have a control system which is elegantly simple but amazingly effective. It allows individuals to use it on any sort of terrain, surface, stairs. It responds in real time to a user's intention. And the fact that it's connected means it's telehealth ready and can be programmed to engage users and keep them using the device. Our business model, we plan B2B and B2C, both to rehab clinics and individuals. Again, as I mentioned, we think there are at least initially 75,000 initial customers, way more than that down the road. And the original target price is $2,500. That's an order of magnitude less than anything else on the market right now that provides powered mobility solutions for individuals. We plan to offer that to families at a price of $100 per month in a lease and subscription, which we've learned is affordable. Quickly, our timeline, a couple of key things to point out. In 2021, we'll be placing units in clinics and using that to collect FDA data for safety and efficacy. 2022, we anticipate late FDA approval late in that year, and then approval for personal use in 2023. Financially, that sort of corresponds, our financial revenue projections correspond with those approvals and growth, where we start to see increasing revenue in year 4, approximately $20 million of estimated revenue in year 5, and profitability. We have a strong team of individuals. Zach and I have been collaborating for over a decade. He's one of the smartest biomedical engineers I've ever met, and we've teamed up with some experts in medical device commercialization and assistive technology to help us be successful. Our team is dedicated to improving and making an impact and improving the lives of individuals with movement disorders.
Unfortunately, cerebral palsy is a condition with no known cure, and there's really no anticipated cure. But what we are trying to do is make it possible for someone with cerebral palsy to live a more normal, or ideally a completely normal life.
And with that, I say thank you again for the opportunity to be here. It's great, and I'll be happy to answer questions, I believe.
Really well done, Ray. Thank you so much. I'm going to cry at every segment today, I guess. That's cool. Didn't see that coming. But really, this is a beautiful device, and I love that it's affordable. And I actually, I know people who are affected by this, so it's just incredible. I'm wondering where the idea initially, how was the initial idea inspired?
Oh, that's a good question. Zach and I have always had a, Zach was a PhD student in my lab, and we always had this this desire. Both of us come from the fortunate circumstance of being healthy individuals, and we've had lots of opportunities to sort of explore our own human potential, and we became really interested in how can we help individuals that maybe haven't had those same opportunities because of childhood diseases or other illnesses. And that really was something that drives us, is we really want to see, and when you look at what the current state of the tools that the rehabilitation community has at their disposal, they're not a lot different than they were 50 years ago. And we just think that we can do a lot better. So that was the original motivation, was when you see a person use this, and when you see the parents' reaction of a child using it, it's really hard not to just completely break down. It's the hardest part of the job.
It was incredible to watch the boy side by side after the tree. I mean, I'm like, let's get this thing going. This is amazing.
Yep. It's
amazing.
Cool to watch.
Maggie, I'm wondering if you have any questions for our friend here.
So it seems like there could be a lot of potential uses for this.
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little more about that.
That's a great question, Maggie. So we, I think partly selfishly because of our interest in children, and we feel like if we can help children, there's a long impact across their lives. The device works extremely well with Parkinson's disease, stroke, spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury. Trying it with multiple sclerosis, not quite sure yet what needs to happen there. So it has broad application to any individual that has some disruption between the brain signals and the body signals that limit their ability to move. So we're excited about that. It's really tapping into this idea of we have an amazing neural plasticity, a way to reprogram, and sometimes we just need some signals that allow people to return or to gain mobility. So it's got broad application, and we're working on all of those patient populations now.
Well, it's exciting to think about what might happen with long-term use too. I'm sure.
Yeah, we're thrilled. We can't wait to get it into the hands of clinicians, because they're just going to take it a whole nother level. We'll learn so much from them.
So cool. Okay, well, so I'm so excited. The menti.com virtual question is working. So we have a big question for you back on the screen. Is this a class 1 device? Is there a predicate? What interaction have you had with FDA regarding the approval path?
That's a great question. That's 3 questions. Is that
No,
do I just get to pick one of those?
I mean, I think take your time.
I'm going to give you this short answer, and there's a much more detailed answer. It is right now, it would be a class 2 medical device. It would need to go through a 510K approval process, which if you're not in the FDA world, that doesn't matter. There is a predicate device. That means a device that operates similarly. It's designed for stroke, so we've identified that predicate device. And interestingly, we are in the process where we have a FDA pre-submission meeting scheduled this fall, which we discuss with them our plans for obtaining approval. So that's in process right now. So we should be meeting with them before the end of the year, and we've laid out for FDA exactly what clinical trials we plan to do and when we plan to do them in order to gain relatively rapid approval.
Do you have any experience working with the FDA and in a similar getting approval for a device or some sort of?
I do not, and our strategy, a little bit like I think, I learned something from Aiden, is that when you don't have the expertise, you just find it. You just get out there and find it. So we have teamed up with some folks, fortunately finding individuals who have deep experience with the FDA process is something that we've been able to do. So we have both from the legal side as well as the practical side. I think we've got a really great team there to help us do that.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, I have another question from the audience. What are you looking for from this audience? What do you need to make this thing go?
That's a great question. I think there's 3 things that we are obviously looking for. And one, and this is something that I think Aiden also talked about a little bit, which is mentorship and guidance, right? So there's a lot of talent in this collection, people who've done a lot of different things that would really help us be successful. So those are two things that I would love to have. So if you've gone through this road or you can help us, Zach and I are both very technical founders. We know where our limitations are, I think, and the other is resources, financial resources. So that's obviously one reason you come to something like this is these kinds of efforts are not inexpensive to undertake. So,
Sure.
Yep.
Could this be used for stroke victims? Another audience question.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we've done some preliminary data with stroke. It works quite well. We're working on a partnership with some other rehabilitation hospitals to just really nail down kind of the specifics in regards to stroke. Uniquely, in CP, it's usually a bilateral condition, so both limbs are affected, and obviously in stroke, most of us usually only have one side affected. So one of the things that we're working on is being able to very, very simply and easily make it unilateral versus bilateral, so that way you can use it for a stroke patient. Or we might find that, if I do something interesting on the right side, the unaffected side, it actually facilitates the treatment on the affected side. So that's one thing that we're exploring.
It gives me chills. The human body is truly amazing.
Yep.
Incredible. Okay, I have another question for you. What is your IP protection? Have you done a freedom to operate search? Do you have patents outside the US?
Another multiple question within a question.
I know, and this one's
is great.
serious.
IP protection, we have 8 patents right now that are in various stages of, 6 of those are utility patents, 2 are provisional patents. They're all in the PTO domain. So for those of you that have done that, know that that's kind of a black hole for a little while before you hear. We have done freedom to operate. That is I'm happy to share that information. There's a lot more detail there. And we do not currently have patents outside the US, although that's something that's part of the resource question, that filing those patents internationally would be something that we would hope to achieve.
Very good. And how have you funded your business to date?
It's bootstrapped, so you're looking at part of it. So we've, fortunately, Zach, we've relied some on the university, the Northern Arizona University, which is where Zach is a faculty member, but it's basically come from the founders so far.
Yep. And you believe in it. Well, Maggie, I'm wondering if you have any additional questions for Ray.
Well, the nerd in me is curious about how it works. So is it more about training the muscles or the brain?
So that's that's a really good question. I think it's both, actually. So one of the things that we know, and I'll speak maybe specifically to CP first, but it does generally apply. Ankle plantar flexor muscles, these big muscles in the back of your leg, you get really profoundly weak. And they're really, really important in terms of getting from point A to point B in walking. And so one is you have to address that weakness. But oftentimes the weakness is caused by the fact that the brain isn't sending a signal to those muscles to activate at the right time. And one of the things that we know from kids with CP is they're driven not by, I want to walk, they're driven by, what's that shiny thing over there, right? And they'll just figure out a way to get there. And they end up with these really disorganized signals that go from the brain to the body. And one of the things we think the device is helping them do is reorganize those signals into a pattern that actually efficiently allows them to get from point A to point B. So it's really both. It's brain, spinal cord, and muscle. I mean, and we're in our infancy here, so there's a lot of things we don't know yet, which is what makes it super fun.
I sense that. It's just remarkable, and you seem to be really being quite responsible with it as well. So,
trying to be. Although there's a whole nother, I think there's healthy aging in place where you're not treating a condition where people just want to go out and be able to go hike with their kids or spend some time and they get tired. So there is another opportunity there, which I think is one that we're really actively interested in and exploring as we speak. So
good.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Maggie?
Yeah, one more question is about sales and how, what's the strategy and how far can you get before the FDA approval is in place?
So that's a good question, and maybe at dinner we can talk a little bit more about
Short
it. But
answer.
We have, if we choose to focus on a non-class 2 medical device, it's all about labeling with the FDA. So if we label devices not being for a condition and not intended to treat a condition, there's probably a way to begin sales sooner, although Zach and I both feel like that's not the right thing to do. The device is intended to help people with a diagnosed medical condition, and we really want to make sure that we get that work done, and moving to a quicker path to revenue would more than likely distract us from that, which I think would be, I'd rather do it the other way around.
Well, Ray, I'm truly inspired by this. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming here and sharing your device with us. And Maggie, excellent questions. I'm going to go over here and just weep a little bit, so I'll be back.
I'll
Ray,
step off
good
the
luck.
stage.
Best
I
of
don't
luck
have
to
any
you.
tissues. I'm sorry. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
I learned so much from all of these companies. On to our second impact company pitch. This afternoon, it's Focal Technologies, Inc. from Portland, Oregon. A patented ray system using a refractive lens to concentrate the sun's heat and UV waves into a receiver to break down any organic contaminant in water or soil. Please welcome CEO Eric Steinmeier.
All right, good afternoon, y'all. My name is Eric Steinmeier, and I'm the CEO of Focal Technologies, maker of the revolutionary Ray solar remediation system that uses the power of the sun to clean up the earth. Globally, we have a problem with concentrated organic contamination. These are the high-impact effluents that are coming off of industrial sites, airports, high-intensity agriculture, and spills. They represent a huge impact on the environment as they get out. They cause fish kills, and even create the dead zones in the ocean. All told, this is about an $18 billion market in the United States, mostly because most of these things actually have to be tipped and hauled. And believe it or not, there's just relatively not a lot of good solutions for these. So our solution is to use the sun to clean up the problem on the earth. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the Ray Generation 2 solar remediation system made right here in the USA in Oregon. Ray uses a large refracting lens to concentrate the heat and UV of the sun into an area where we can sterilize bacteria, break down complex organics, and even isolate the greenhouse gases. Ray represents a truly renewable remediation option. It's packaged as a piece of equipment that's mobile, portable, and scalable. We're capable of building this system in 16, 32, and 40-foot sizes for higher throughputs and for higher energy intensities. Best of all, Ray is leasable, making it affordable to the customer. So Ray uses the process of photocatalysis. And if you've ever come home from your vacation and you've seen your mail all yellow on the front porch, or your plastic lawn chair has gotten brittle, you're watching photocatalysis. And simply put, it's the UV attacking the carbon bonds that hold all molecular structures together. And this process is very well known, and it's actually very well studied in the laboratory. There's a ton of research that's gone on that shows that using photocatalysis, you can break down some of the most toxic chemicals on the planet. However, most of this research is being done using high-intensity UV lamps and LED lamps. And there's simply not a way to get enough energy economically using those systems to get this out of the laboratory. The only way to make this market ready and to get it out is to use free energy, and we use the free energy of the sun. The Focal Technologies lens is capable of putting 100 suns on a point. Roughly, that translates out into about 6,000 watts of UV and about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And oh, by the way, it's free and doesn't create any greenhouse gassing. We have a patent on the process of using and concentrating a radiant light for the radiation of materials. We have utility patents on what we feel to be the optimal delivery device for this system. We've got a copyright on the program that designs the lens, and we even have a trademark on Ray. And we've got a little experience. We've actually built 2 of these systems. The first one was parked down at Oregon State University for about a year, where they verified it and ran a number of different effluents in it through it for verification. The second unit was at a compost facility in North Portland for 8 months, where we processed more waste and learned about how the system operated and got ourselves ready to build the next system. And the results from OSU were clear. What OSU found was that using concentrated solar light sets off the photocatalytic process orders of magnitude faster than anything that's been witnessed in the laboratory or in research literature that's available. Whey is packaged in a way where we can run it completely autonomously using solar panels, which sets it up for emergency management. It's designed for rapid deployment and autonomous operation, and it's cheaper. Whey is cheaper than anaerobic digestion on a per gallon basis by about half and cuts the cost of tipping and is cheaper than tipping and hauling by about a third. Whey allows customers to pre-treat their effluents, avoiding those hauling costs, and it helps customers avoid fines, which can be $50,000 to $300 million, as in a case in North Carolina. Requires minimal power inputs and low operational costs, and again, it's made right here with systems coming primarily from the Northwest. From a competitive standpoint, Whey sort of checks all the boxes in terms of efficacy, capital cost, operational throughput, ease for the customer use. But what's really interesting about Whey and what has the environmental industry excited about it is that it's a whole new remediation technology that makes other technologies work better. Used at the front end, Whey can break the difficult carbon bonds that are hard for other technologies to break, making them work faster downstream once those carbon bonds are broken. So it can actually accelerate the use of bioremediation and the use of bugs to break down some of these compounds. For a dairy farmer, it means more capacity in your lagoon, it means a higher throughput, it means less spill events, and it leads to a less of an impact on the environment. So our short-term market is agriculture and emergency management. In the long term, we're focusing on all these other effluents. Most of them we already have data on from our research testing. And this is not theoretical. This is currently on the factory floor right now being produced. We're fulfilling orders for our initial 3 customers. We've got other orders that we're negotiating right now. We've set up distribution partnerships in most of our key industries like food processing and dairy, including in regional partnerships with California dairy distributors. And we enjoy research partnerships with Oregon State University, UNLV, and the Air Force Advanced Research Institute. We also have been cooperating with the USDA, working with them to get the system qualified for the EQIP grant, which will offset the cost of the equipment by up to 90% for eligible dairy producers. So there's a lot of numbers here, but what makes this possible is the cost of the system versus the margin. These are MSRPing for $135,000, and right now we're getting margins close to $50,000 on the first units. That's going to expand as we go into higher production. Our models for getting these out are both on leasing and in sales, and we also have talked about a subscription model for the equipment. There's also revenues that can come from lease capital financing and from equipment maintenance. But the key number that's not here is 70. At 70% efficient, Whey provides a lot of throughput for the dollar, which means we can charge those margins, but it also means we can make money on a relatively small number of units, which reduces the exposure for our investors. So something this cool only comes with a really cool team, and I'm really blessed to have mine, including Don McGrath, who's my CFO. It's in the audience today. Our lead designer, Austin Angel, who has done design work for both Harley-Davidson and John Deere. He's leading a team of CAD designers and coordinating our engineers and contractors that include 3 female contractors and 2 veterans. We have an analytical chemist that does testing for the DEQ and the EPA that qualifies our effluents, a dynamite electrical systems engineer, and the inventor of the technology is my dad, and he's still with us as a technical advisor. But I'm also proud to say that our advisors are our investors, and we're pleased to say that a lot of our investors are actually from inside the environmental remediation industry because they understand what this means. We also have an investor that's providing the early lease capital financing. Oh. I went one too far. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We're so happy to be here. We're looking for investors. We're looking for partners. We're looking for customers. But most of all, we're looking for relationships to help get Whey out, to change our world, to change our environment. I want to say thank you to BVC for having us here. It's really a thrill. And I also want to say thank you to all the other entrepreneurs that are here today. All of them deserve investment and just amazing companies, and it's amazing to be in your presence. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so you and your dad invent a giant magnoscope lens that cleans up garbage. You are blowing my mind, Eric. I did not see this coming. Maggie, I'm wondering what your first question is for our friend Eric.
Where are the giant ants?
So what are people doing now? Because this seems like it solves a really big problem.
Yeah, so for something like a dairy, there's actually a dearth of options that are out there. There's permit requirements, there's lots of lagoons, and the dairy farmers are actually really struggling right now to handle their effluents. And particularly in a place like Oregon where coliform is a big deal, particularly if it gets into rivers and streams, they're facing large fines when this gets out. In the Midwest, you're seeing problems where things are going down into the geology, like in Idaho. They're contaminating the aquifer underneath, the area around Twin Falls. It's just a significant thing. And right now, the dairy farmers are sort of dancing around the outside of some of these regulations, but it's coming and they know it, and so they're all looking for systems. The other thing I'd like to say about this with dairies in particular is I think sometimes they get a bad rap as being anti-environmental, but they're actually amazing stewards of the land, and they're looking for a way to tell their story about how they can be as environmental as well and give back.
So it sounds like this is really, really useful in an emergency, but some people may need one all the time. So, like, who is that? Like,
That it runs all the time?
yeah, you mentioned some people want to just have one and purchase it. Others may want to lease it. Or
Oh, well, those are actually the sales models on it. So a lot of farm equipment actually goes out on leases. Kubota tractor never sells them. They're all on leases. And so for certain markets, obviously lease financing is the way to go. For other customers, they want to take advantage of accelerated depreciation and they want to sell it directly. But in general, the equipment on site would be used continuously. It's designed to work in the wintertime. It's designed to survive freezing temperatures and be fairly robust.
Just still have a blown mind, Eric, so stay with me. I love this next question because I think it means people believe in you. What level of investment do you need to get to the next stage?
Got it. So right now we're in the middle, I guess my slides aren't still up. We are in the middle of a Series A raise right now. We've raised $500,000 on what is a $2.2 million ask. Right now, because we've asked a lot of our contractors to work with us and we've offered them shares, including our primary fabricator, which has agreed to work for equity because they believe in the product. We're probably down to between a $300,000 and $400,000 nut to get this over the hump. We are actually right now in the process of delivering this first unit. We're deep into the capital cost, and it's just a matter of completing all of the what we call non-reoccurring engineering, which is the upfront design expenses. This system is comprised of over 900 individual CAD and engineering drawings that pull it together, and that costs some money.
How would you describe the key competitive advantage of the Ray system?
It's free.
That's pretty good.
No, the system itself isn't free, but obviously the energy is free. And the ability for it to run, almost completely autonomously really sets it apart. But again, I'll go back to that slide that was up there about the treatment train approach. This is a real deal. Environmental engineering firms are looking for a combination of systems to treat these problems. It's not that one thing is better, it's that these things are better in different situations. So going back to our margins, at the margins that we have, if we sell 52 or 200 of these over a 2-year period, we're making significant amount of dollars, and that's only scratching the surface of the relative market that's out there for something like this.
It's just wild. How many gallons of waste can your device process in a day, and what is the purchase cost of the model?
Well, again, it's $135,000 MSRP. That's without the solar panels. If we put the panels on it, it jumps to $150,000. I should say we're in discussions right now with Oregon Emergency Management about that. They have a need for equipment to prepare for the Cascadia event, and that's the model that we would sell them. In terms of the GPM throughput, for dairy waste on the 8-foot model, we're running about 8 gallons a minute on that system. But again, it's important to point out the heart of our technology is the scalability. It's our ability to increase the size of that lens, which goes back to our casting technology. It's a low-cost tooling technology. And that means we can easily increase the size of the system to 16 feet. And when you do that, you don't double the throughput, you quadruple the throughput. because it's a circular Fresnel lens. So our cost on the equipment only jumps about $25,000 to $30,000, but what we can sell that for in the marketplace goes up dramatically. So the other thing to say is different effluents will have different throughput capacity. We're obviously going to be working faster on something at sterilization than we would with, for instance, we have data from OSU on PFOA, which is fire retardant material, which so far they're really struggling to break down. The system has an effect on it, and it's been shown to chew through it. So we're probably looking at about 1 gallon a minute with that.
That's wild. I have a feeling there's going to be all kinds of additional discoveries that you'll make with this thing once it's up and running. So I'm just so inspired. I could listen to you talk about it all day, but I'm going to let you go for now. Thank you for being here.
Okay.
Wonderful
Thank
pitch.
you.
Thanks,
All right.
Maggie.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Now on to our third impact company pitch this afternoon, Lazarus 3D. Lazarus 3D is from Corvallis, Oregon. They have developed a 3D process to rapidly create lifelike models of anatomy from MRI screenings for doctors and hospitals. To tell us more about Lazarus 3D is founder and CEO Jacques Zanneveld and founder and president Dr. Smriti Zanneveld.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much, everyone. So I'm Dr. Jacques Zanneveld,
And I'm Dr. Smriti Zanneveld.
and we're the founders of Lazarus 3D, where we're helping doctors operate with confidence.
You know, there is a problem today when physicians are learning how to perform surgeries on a pumpkin, and this isn't even the worst of it. The reality of the truth is that physicians are learning on the job when they are performing surgeries or practicing on you and me. In the real world, when physicians lack the skills or the expertise and cannot acquire those outside of the operating room, they sometimes can make mistakes, and those mistakes have consequences. Today, over 250,000 people die every year due to medical errors. It's the third leading cause of death. That's accounting for over 10% of all deaths in the US alone.
Dr. Makary put it boils down to people dying because of the care they're receiving rather than the issue for which they are seeking treatment. We think that this is not acceptable, and at Lazarus 3D, we have developed the solution. We've developed a way to create an exact physical replica of a patient from their MRI or CT scan data that allows a physician for the first time ever to rehearse a surgery ahead of time, improving outcomes, reducing risk, and helping make sure that every patient is properly cared for. Now, I'm going to show you an example of a surgery of one of our copies of a patient. And I want to warn you, even though this isn't a real surgery on a human, it looks a lot like it. So this is a surgery on a Lazarus 3D model of a woman's breast tumor. And you can see our artificial model, our copy of this patient, recapitulates all of the important features of a real surgery with realistic bleeding, vascular structures, complex tissues, and complex geometric arrangements. We can even control the way these artificial tissues bond to each other, giving an unparalleled surgical rehearsal experience.
So in order to create copies of patients, we need to and these are individualized patients' models, not just some average Joe, we need to begin by analyzing that individual's data. So we acquire the MRI or CT scan of the individual patient. In this case, the patient has kidney cancer. From there, we create a digital model of the patient using a FDA-approved software. Here you can see the patient's kidney, and there is a tumor and blood vessels in that digital design. Within 24 hours, we use our in-house production process, which is patented and a proprietary technology using soft tissue printing to create a physical copy of that patient's organ. The physician will then have an opportunity to rehearse or perform the entire process that they are going to utilize to perfect their plan before they operate on the patient.
So here's an example of this in real life. Here you can see Laura, who had a complex kidney cancer case, and Dr. Sean Wasson from Boston Medical Center, who did a surgical removal of her tumor. Now, interestingly, for this type of surgery, you have to clamp the artery feeding blood to the kidney in order to do it. But once you do that, your kidney starts dying because it doesn't have any oxygen. So you're on a time limit from the moment you start that operation. Now, in this case, Dr. Wasson was able to identify that he only needed to clamp one of the branches of the artery going up to her tumor. That meant that he didn't need to limit oxygen supply to the rest of her kidney. That helps her preserve her renal function. That's going to help her live a healthy, fulfilling life. And that also, if we do a mathematical calculation of costs, saves our medical system about $88,000 per year by keeping her off of dialysis. This is far superior to anything available through our competitors. Our competitors all do the same thing. They allow you to look at patient data, whether that's by 3D printing a hard plastic copy of the patient or by something like a VR system that lets you view the data in 3 dimensions. But physical interaction is an extremely important part of surgery, and without that, you aren't really addressing the needs of surgeons and of patients. Because of this, we've been able to generate over $1.4 million in sales, including sales to the top hospitals in the United States, just in the first half of this year. So Cleveland Clinic is ranked the #1 hospital in the US for urology. They're one of our clients. MD Anderson Cancer is ranked #1 for cancer care, just to give you an example of the types of groups that we're working with.
Over the last 4 years, we've achieved some of our most important milestones. In 2019, we had our full utility patent granted by the USPTO. We have also had medical billing codes, or CPT codes, issued by the American Medical Association this year. Also, we are currently in conversations with top health insurance providers, such as Humana, that is interested in coverage of our technology through their services. We also have our NPI number issued, which is our healthcare provider number, so that we can bill to insurance as soon as our next milestone is achieved, which is approval of the FDA 510(k). It's in submission, and we anticipate approval by Q1 of 2021. None of this would have been achievable without the stellar team, the dream team, that has made this possible. Jacques and I are the founders that created this technology out of our kitchen while we were students at Baylor College of Medicine. We have a background in business, science, research, and development, medicine, biomedical engineering, sales, and marketing.
Once our technology is FDA approved in 2021, we will be able to sell these models for patients paying out of pocket. At the same time, immediately, we're going to begin feasibility studies with top insurers in the United States. What that means is that we'll have a regional rollout of this technology, followed by a nationwide rollout estimated around 2023. As a result of these increasing levels of coverage, we're expecting increasing sales. Already in the past 4 years, we've increased our sales over 30x. We're projecting that once we are able to sell our patient-specific models, our core value proposition, we'll be able to follow along with that growth and reach $100 million in sales by 2025. We sell these models at $2,500 a piece at a cost of $300 to produce.
All of the successes, growth, and revenue is very important, but what's most important to us is the impact that this technology is having on healthcare as a whole. Without this model, I don't think my surgery would have been possible. Mr. Charles Lewis said that. This is one of our first patients that we created a surgical rehearsal model for. He says that because 4 physicians at the top institutions in the country told him that his kidney was inoperable. They were not going to touch him. Too much of a liability risk. When he approached Dr. Link, who was working with us at Baylor College of Medicine at that time, Dr. Link told him that he was going to try and perfect this surgery and see whether it's even achievable by rehearsing on a Lazarus 3D model before operating on him. Dr. Link saved Charles' kidney, and he's alive today. So my ultimate question to you is, which future will you choose? One where your doctor is operating without having a clue of what to expect in the operating room, or one where they're operating with confidence? Thank you so much, and please join us in this mission so that we can together make our world a safer place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, this is truly, truly amazing. I almost don't know where to start. One thing I will say is that I know that there's a phenomenon in medicine and with doctors where, regardless of whether they feel confident or not confident going into the operating room or prescribing a treatment, that really has zero effect on the outcome. And so it really does speak to this like sort of fallibility that we have mentally when we go into these situations. And I'm wondering, are you running into any boundaries with surgeons who are like, I don't need that paid dress rehearsal, or how's that part of the process been going?
Yeah, absolutely. Physicians want this technology. Everybody wants to do a good job, especially with something as important as surgery. There's just never been a way to do this. And if you take any musician and you give them a new piece of music, if it's difficult, they're gonna make mistakes. Physicians know themselves that this happens, and they're looking for any way that they can to address this. Also, there are liability concerns here. So as this technology develops, we're able to prove how much of a contribution we're making in reducing risk. We're hoping that we can get those healthcare providers a reduction in their own costs for liability insurance to help incentivize them to use the technology.
Just incredible. Maggie, I'm wondering if you have any questions.
So if a doctor needs an organ to practice on before doing the real thing, how long does it take to get it to them?
Sure. So our process from start to finish can be achieved in as little as 16 hours. We advise 24 to 48 hours. Typically, the process begins by the physician uploading the de-identified MRI or CT scan on our HIPAA compliant server, which is on our website, www.laz3d.com. From there, we process the data and produce the physical model. The next day, we ship it out using overnight shipping. So typically, these surgeries are planned out ahead of time, typically 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, so the physician has ample time to plan with their team in perfecting their game plan for the big day.
And what are the limitations to scalability of production? This is an audience question.
Yeah, so very importantly, this technology is massively scalable. So enough machinery and capital expense to produce a patient-specific model per day only costs $16,000. And we're selling those patient-specific models at $2,500 each. So we're able to pay off all of the machinery costs in 1 week. That makes this very rapid to scale, and that's because our business model is totally different from other 3D printing companies approaching this. They approach this from the perspective of, I want to sell a machine to a hospital, so I'm going to charge them as much money as I possibly can for that machine. We're instead approaching it as a service, saying we're going to take on all of the steps. You don't have to buy a machine, you don't have to hire personnel, you just focus on treating the patients, and we're going to take care of the rest.
That's amazing. And it seems like this is like quite user-friendly. So like the sort of path from adopting this software is like pretty instant.
Correct. So in terms of integrating this into the physician's workflow, right now, physicians already have this process called surgery planning. Unfortunately for them, they need to rely on 2D MRIs or CTs, and then imagine in their heads how that transforms into a 3D object, and then use that imagination to plan their surgery.
Right.
So this plugs in very well into that workflow because now they don't need to do that imaginary step. They can actually use the physical model to communicate not only with their team, but also with their patient, make them feel more confident and comfortable with the procedure that's very, very scary for any patient undergoing surgery.
Absolutely.
And then from there, the next step, which is like actually rehearsing before they operate.
Right, and it's that imaginary piece where we go sideways, right? So are you using, this is an audience question, are you using a FDM or SLA 3D printing process? How do you process the data into different tissue types in the 3D printer?
Absolutely. So we have our own patented technology. That patent is issued. We got all of our court claims on a second patent just accepted. So this is our own technology. You actually can't achieve these results either with any available FDM or SLA printer. So you need Lazarus 3D technology in order to do this. The second part of the question was?
how do you process the
Right.
information?
So we start out with an FDA-approved software. We use that to call each of the different tissue types. Internal to our team, we do mechanical testing on actual specimens from either animals or cadavers to figure out the properties of tissue. Then we use our process to make synthetic materials matching those properties. So our kidney feels like our kidney, our tumors feel like tumors, our blood vessels feel like blood vessels, and actually have blood in them. So yeah.
Okay, I have one more quick question. What feedback have you received from surgeons versus how the actual surgery went versus the practice?
Okay. Yeah, sure. The physicians' feedback has been phenomenal. Physicians do inherently have a God complex, so it's very. You have to be very careful not to hurt their ego, right? So our technology actually boosts their ego, because when a patient asks them, hey doc, what are you going to do to make sure that I have a really safe, quick recovery? And right now the physician says, well, I'm going to do my best. It's like not in my hands, right? Well, our technology empowers them to answer that question very differently, because they can say things like, I actually have your kidney right here. And look at this, your tumor is so complex. It's complex because of X and Y reasons. I'm going to actually practice on this before I operate on you so that I do an excellent job and you get out of the hospital as quickly as possible.
It's just amazing. Well, I'm rooting for you all. I really, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you all so much, and thank you everyone with BVC and in the office.
So now on to our final impact company for today. Wheyward Spirit from Portland, Oregon, repurposing billions of pounds of whey that go to waste to create a more sippable and sustainable spirit. Welcome to the stage, founder Emily Darshak.
Hi, my name's Emily Darchuk, and I'm the founder and CEO of Wheyward Spirit. We make a superior tasting sipping spirit made from whey with farm-to-flask roots. Now, my background's in the natural food industry, and I know that consumer well. My nearly decade of experience working in the dairy industry allowed me to see the pain point of whey waste firsthand. Whey is a liquid byproduct of making cheese, and there's over 2 million tanker trucks produced of it annually, about half of that left stranded from the food supply. But to be honest, seeing any of it wasted made me mad. As a food scientist, I knew how to make alcohol, but I actually had the audacity to make alcohol out of this excess whey. I also didn't see a spirit on the market for consumers like myself who cared about where my food came from, and from experience, I knew I couldn't solve a commodity problem with a commodity solution. The opportunity to give these consumers who care a voice and transform the spirit and the dairy industry for the better got me excited. This is how Wheyward Spirit was born. We get our name because we're proudly a whey-based spirit, but also our wayward mentality to buck the status quo and to do things differently for the right reasons. We're focused on elevating the messaging in spirits, but also making a sustainable difference through sourcing. This is important because although there are a ton of spirits on the market, a lot of them look, taste, touch, and feel the same. And what consumers want in alcohol is really no different than any other category. They care about quality and flavor, but they also care about the source. They want a why behind the brand, and they want to be part of an experience, and they are thirsty for a better option. This is where we come in. We create an entirely new category of distilled spirit to meet their needs head on. We're focused on great flavor, quality ingredients, and sustainable sourcing to build an authentic and trusted relationship with our consumer. The foundation of our spirit is excess whey, because where some saw whey as waste, we see liquid gold. We're sourcing directly from dairies and producing our product from scratch. That creates a spirit with a remarkable flavor and a lasting and memorable story that can build a lasting connection with our core consumer. And because we're a farm-to-flask company, our process starts with those cheese producers who make the cheese and supply us with our whey. We take this whey that was previously going unused and transfer that to our distillery, where we can transform that into our product. We make Wheyward Spirit from scratch using my formula. We're carefully curating our flavor through our fermentation and refining and concentrating that flavor through our strategic cuts and distillation. Our whey base and our proprietary process is what gives our spirit its unique mouthfeel, body, and flavor. And our signature flavor has oaky hints of vanilla cream, warm spice, a subtle pear aroma, and an iconic velvety smooth finish that's good enough to sip straight. We don't distill as high as other clear spirits, which actually strips the product of flavor. Instead, we make our cuts strategically and at a lower proof, allowing us to maintain the richness of our whey source and all of that flavor we created during fermentation. And we designed our spirit to be both sippable, but really a versatile foundation for cocktails. And we've worked with bartenders from across the country to create a portfolio of bespoke drinks highlighting our spirit. And we can get on their radar because we're offering them something completely new. They love our flavor, but really they value our versatility. They also like the story and the simplicity we can bring to them by simply trading out a standard vodka, gin, or rum with Wheyward Spirit to give a bespoke twist to classic cocktails. And our transformational story has gotten national press attention. We've been featured in Inc. and Forbes and many other features, bringing inbound consumer interest from across the country. And I'll be honest, COVID threw us for a little bit of a loop, but all the work we've done to adapt to it in our business plan has actually set us up as a great springboard for growth in many different channels. Our suggested retail price is about $54.99, which is priced in line with other premium sipping spirits. It's actually the fastest growing category for both sales and M&A. We just launched our product into the market last month, and we already have retail placement in California. And with partnership, we have an e-commerce platform where we're able to sell directly to consumers in 31 states, quickly setting us up for success to be a national brand. And that creates an enormous market opportunity. Consumers spent over $63 billion on spirits in 2018. And as a whole, the category is growing about 3%, but craft spirits are growing by nearly 30%. So by 2023, it's projected to be worth over $13 billion, which makes up our addressable market. Now, alcohol industry, it's highly competitive, and the landscape's complex, but there are opportunities, and we are positioned to win. The big guys are lacking authenticity and are really struggling with emerging consumers. And a lot of the small local craft players really struggle to scale beyond their backyard. They lack a nationally relevant differentiation. Finally, many products end up looking the same because they're trying to fit narrow product categories that doesn't do anything for the broader good or the environment. And this is where we're different, and we're proud, and we can actually make a difference. And it's because we have a Wheyward Spirit. We're a team that can actually make this happen. My background is as a veteran of the food and beverage industry with a lot of experience in the natural food industry focused on innovation and commercialization. And my colleague, Megan, is a veteran of the alcohol industry and our new California-based market manager and managing operations. We also have an amazing group of advisors and mentors. Gary Hirschberg is one of our early investors and continues to be a mentor, and he's the founder of Stonyfield Farm. We've also had the support of Virtue Lab for years because of our climate impact potential. We also have the support for the Dairy Farmers of America, the largest dairy cooperative in the nation, and recently were selected by Rabobank into their Food Bite program. So we've had to do a lot of work to get to this point over a 2-year journey. And part of that's having over 1,000 people sample our spirit to help us perfect our recipe. But in an independent blind taste test, we actually outperformed the market-leading vodka. So we're now hitting the market at full speed. We're proud to say, move over vodka, there's a new spirit in town. We would love for you to be a part of our journey and visit our website to join our herd. And if you would like, purchase a bottle for yourself. Thank you very much.
Emily, this is so cool, and that's a very good-looking cow. First question from the audience, can you tell us more about how much net waste you reduce by converting whey to spirits? Is your primary raw material free?
Yeah, so every bottle, 750 ml bottle, offsets about 6 gallons of whey waste, and we actually pay our producers for the whey. We're small. They produce a lot of whey. They're taking time to do that. As we scale, our value grows to them, but also, we're proud to be adding value back into the food chain and helping that kind of help the broader community. So it still is economic, but it's important to be a good steward of that whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. And Maggie, I'm wondering if you have any questions for Emily.
Well, I do have a statement. It's delicious.
Good to know. And so is this something that people with dairy allergies can have?
Yeah, so we are lactose-free. And with that process, essentially, we add yeast and we ferment that way the natural sugars that occur in milk. And then through distillation, essentially, we're just extracting that alcohol and those flavors that come along with it. So it's highly refined, but obviously, we're very transparent on where it comes from. So if you actually have a milk allergy, we wouldn't recommend it. But if it's just a lactose sensitivity, it's tested. We are lactose-free.
Yeah. Okay. And nobody else has made a spirit out of whey, huh?
Yeah, so there's probably like 10 or so companies across the world that have made alcohol from whey. And everything that I've seen is a vodka or a gin. And at least from my background as a product developer, it's like by the time you're breaking the mold and creating a new supply chain that doesn't really exist, why would you do the standard product in the standard process? So I really took a design thinking approach to create the best tasting spirit possible, to really add value to the consumer. And with that, I think it's something beautiful to actually be able to retain and highlight those flavors versus just stripping it out to have alcohol. So we are the first of our kind, and we have a signature flavor that's very unique and defensible.
Awesome. Pretty amazing how large the market is. Is anybody surprised by that?
It's recession-proof, too.
It sure is. Maggie, it looks like you have a question.
So you've managed to get a lot of PR really quickly, and I heard something about a New York Times article yesterday. Anyways, I'd love to hear how you managed to get so much PR so fast.
Yeah, a lot of it's been organic. To be honest, I was a Virtue Lab company, and I spoke at one of their events very early on, and got picked up from Forbes there, and was the first platform to really tell my story, and then. That then got on someone's radar, and then Inc. picked us up after I met Gary, again, very organically at an event, and he thought I'd be a great mentee, and we built a great relationship from there, and, people read that, and it's just one of those concepts that makes sense to people, and it's like, this should exist, and I want to taste it, and that I want to support this, because why not? So I think just inherently on what we're doing and why we're doing that has connected with people in a way that's been kind of magical, and that and now that we're in market, we're really focusing on hitting those channels to tell our story in the best way and show people how to use the product, and especially with our pivots that we've had to do to really focus on e-commerce versus bars and restaurants, and having those ambassadors with it, finding those channels to be able to communicate that, and that's something we're really focused on over the next couple months. But it's been exciting, and I'm trying to create the change I want to see in the world, and I see the alcohol industry as a sexy way to be able to talk about food waste and get people to care, and just not have boring spirits, because life's too short.
I love that. It's funny because this question sort of asked you to go a little bit further. How do you educate the consumer about the environmental impacts? And you're like, well, I get them drunk. And then I tell them a story, but more specifically, in your words.
I think it's interesting. Well, Little Miss Muffet does a lot of work for me, so I can kind of start with the curds and whey and go from there. And I got into the food industry because I was interested in food and curious about it, and I know other people are, so it's kind of a fun way to connect you to where your food comes from with it. But with that, we try to bring that sustainability message into everything we're doing, right? So we do sustainable shippers when we ship, but we're also doing waste-free cocktails. We do a whiskey sour riff that's called a waste-free sour, and we're using actually the liquid from chickpeas, aquafaba, instead of egg whites, and the lemon juice, and our spirit's completely waste-free. And it sounds crazy, but it's the most delicious thing you'll ever have. And some of these things are just so jarring and interesting, you can really get people's attention, and then they start to look at their decisions in all different categories. And I think that's kind of exciting with it, and we're leading with something that tastes better, and that's just what I fundamentally believe is how we can do that.
Well, it seems like it's working for you, and I really appreciate you showing up today and sharing with us. So thank you, and I wish you the best of luck, Emily.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.